San Antonio has one of the most storied and historical downtown areas of any city in the country. From the Alamo, to the Menger Hotel, to the Lock Bridge, to of course, the Riverwalk.
Amongst the great cities of Texas and the United States, San Antonio is distinguished by our historical preservation.
But there's one place downtown that passersby see every day, but they might not know much about. And let's just say, it towers above the river.
I'm standing here at the top of the Tower Life building here in San Antonio, where you can see pretty much all of San Antonio here on the 27th floor. Now, there's a lot of more stuff that's going to be added to this building coming next year.
The Tower Life building has defined San Antonio's skyline for nearly 100 years.
Standing on St. Mary Street, the Tower Life building started construction in 1927 before opening to the public in 1929.
I mean, back in the day, this building was it. This was like a real hot part of town.
Nearly a century after its doors first opened, the building's preparing to open them again, this time for people ready to call it home.
Here in San Antonio, we have an important need for more residential housing. Right? So McCombs Enterprises and a few other partners have come together to purchase the building, and we are in the midst of transforming it to being a luxury residence right on the river, with all this historic pedigree.
Which explains the hard hats we're wearing. But more on that later. Before we talk about the future, let's talk about the past that spans almost 100 years. Originally called the Smith-Young Building, this 31-story structure was the tallest in the Alamo City at the time.
The original developer of the building was Jim and Albert Smith. They were brothers. They had made their money in building roads and selling automobiles and owning real estate, and they decided to invest in San Antonio in the heart of downtown in the 1920s. And they turned their attention to building a prime example of where San Antonio is headed in the future. Great direction. They build this building, and it is owned by Smith-Young Properties. That's their company, and that's where the original name for the building comes from, Smith-Young Tower. So they were the owners of the building when it opens in 1929, and they sold the building in the 1930s after the stock market crashed and so many challenges were found in our city.
And while the building is currently closed to the public due to these renovations, that doesn't mean we can't get a tour of the building from Amigos Tours president Brent Salter. Let's start with the first floor.
In 1929, this was the first portion of the building that came to life and that opened to the public on March 7th, 1929. The doors swing open, and this is Sears, Roebuck & Co. It's a fantastic space. It's something that is really a laurel for San Antonio that we got such a big name department store to our city. And previous locations have been like Chicago and New York. So San Antonio, this is really putting us on the map. As people walk in, 225 clerks are here welcoming guests, and there are 75 train cars of merchandise for sale, 35,000 items under one roof. And so you would just wander this space amazed at everything you were seeing. Sears occupied the first 4 floors of the building and then also its basement. Once Sears moves out in 1939, though, this becomes a space where the military draft is taking place during World War II. So you would see long tables in between these columns with people doing their paperwork to join the military.
I also didn't realize I was standing in the birthplace of something I, and probably you, know all too well.
As you fast forward beyond that chapter, 1950, there's a TV station that starts broadcasting from here, KEYL. This is a great space for that station. I think it was 1953. The station sells to the Express News, and they changed the name of KEYL to KENS. So KENS 5, there you go, the birthplace, right here in the same space. And do you know what KENS stands for?
I think Express News is in there
That's
somewhere.
right, yeah. So K is the first letter from the call station that was here originally, and then ENS is Express News Station. So right here in this space, really cool things have happened in this building. This is just a small glimpse.
Yeah. Little do we know, we'll be talking about the history of KENS in this episode.
Who knew?
The first chapter of the news station I work for took place in a towering building I see every time I drive downtown. And one of the most popular areas visitors like to check out isn't one of the 31 floors above. It's in the basement.
This tunnel is a legend of San Antonio. People say, hey, is it true that there's a tunnel that goes beneath the street? Is it true that it's still there. So really getting to walk through it is such a pleasure, and is really cool to see something that's been closed off for quite a while. This tunnel goes beneath St. Mary Street and connects the building to what today is the Granada Apartments, but originally was the Plaza Hotel. It was owned by the same ownership group as Smith Young Tower, and they said we should connect our properties. And so there's a lot of fun stories that maybe a husband and wife would come shopping at Sears. The husband gets bored. He takes the tunnel, goes to the bar at the hotel lobby, and passes the time. Also, that guests of the hotels, if their kids are restless and need a space to run around, you're in the middle of downtown, right? There's not a lot of space for your kids. But that children could come down here and be running and maybe kicking a ball here in the tunnel beneath the street. So the tunnel closed in 1975. You can see that it's more so a storage space today. And when you get to the end of the tunnel, it's blocked off because there's now a separate owner of the building, the Granada Apartments across the street. There was a story that the owner's children would get bored while in the building. And so once the tunnel had been closed off, at one point there was a target at the end for archery, an archery target, and arrows would be shot down this long corridor and hit the target at the end. There's actually some drawings on the walls down here. Right here is a little mouse saying hello to us. So it certainly attests that there were probably some bored hours that were passed by the owner's kids.
Before we doodle more mice on the walls, here's something for the war buffs who are watching.
As we're here in the basement of the building, one of the remarkable things during San Antonio's history is how our city looked during wartime. That would be World War II and also the Cold War. During World War II, the building's basement was identified as a bomb shelter where residents downtown and office workers and retail workers could come and seek shelter if San Antonio were ever to be bombed. And this is a major concern because we're military city USA, right? What are the chances we're a target during World War II? So this would have been one of the spaces safe for people to come as a shelter. During the Cold War, we start declaring spaces in the 1960s, early 1960s, as places where people can seek shelter, fallout shelters to be specific. So here we have a sign on the wall letting you know that the space that you are in is licensed for 400 people to have safety here, to live here for up to a month if an atomic bomb or nuclear bomb is dropped in San Antonio. So this building really has seen so many interesting chapters of our city's history, and there's a story around every corner, which is really fantastic.
Even the corners in the elevator.
So this building is not only tall, it is also state-of-the-art at the time that it is built. It includes so many modern features that haven't been found anywhere in San Antonio yet. In fact, some of them were the best in Texas. The elevators are the fastest in the state. When the building opens in 1929, they move at 800 feet per minute. That's about a story and a half per second that they're rising through the building.
We didn't speed that clip up. That's actually how fast the elevator was going.
Word on the street, I've never confirmed this historically, but the word on the street was that these elevators were destined for the Chrysler building in New York City. Chrysler ran behind schedule, and the company instead sent them to San Antonio to be used here at Tower Life. So, yeah, some pretty fancy elevators.
There you go.
So you can get from the basement to the 7th floor in less than 6 seconds.
Wanted to go outside.
Or you can go outside and take in the view of the building not everyone can see.
And then if you look up at the building, the sun's in your eyes, but see that view? Isn't that great? So it's so different from being on street level and looking up at it.
An even better view? The view of San Antonio from the 27th floor, which you can also get to in record speed.
Even just right here to seeing like all San Antonio.
Yeah.
Like, just right here.
Yeah.
It's really breathtaking.
It is, so.
That's somewhat of fear of heights, you know.
That fear of heights didn't stop me from getting a picture.
Oh my gosh, what a model. Look at the Tower of the Americas. You are on top of the world, child.
Yeah.
Even though it still feels like the tallest building in San Antonio, it was eventually overtaken by the Tower of the Americas in 1968. However, what makes this building unique is its architecture, as it's the tallest 8-sided building in the country.
There are many things that make this building's design special. It is Neo-gothic in its architectural style. So the way we see this is outside, you'll see a lot of faces on the exterior, you'll see blocked floral designs, you'll see finials and arches, and you look at it and you say, wow, that looks old, that looks impressive. It's a style that was so popular on the East Coast in the 1920s. You see it in cathedrals and old skyscrapers. So once again, this style coming into San Antonio was a testament to the people. Man, we are making it. This is incredible. The architectural style from the exterior is then brought into the interior of the building. So even now as we're in this lobby, we see gorgeous details of ornament here. We see arches, we see the elevator doors are made of bronze with Tiffany Favril that are just stunning when people take a look at them. So no matter where you are in the building, you get a sense of, wow, this is really special. And you know, as we have gargoyles overhead, they are often called gargoyles, but gargoyles are really, technically speaking, functional water spouts for the building. These do not actually have water that come from their mouths. They are not functional. They're ornamental. So in theory, they are called grotesques, but why let technicality get in the way of romanticism? Grotesques, gargoyles, I think gargoyles sound better.
These gargoyles, I mean grotesques, are just one thing that makes this building truly stand out.
One of the big questions the public likes to ask, what's original with this building? And the answer is so much. Almost all of the exterior, all the beautiful details are wonderfully preserved. Then that's a testament to those who have taken care of the building through its almost century of history, and that's a testament today of how love and work and time and money and efforts being invested to keep these original elements into the future as well. I believe it was in the past decade or so that the building was repointed, so all of the grout in between the bricks for the entire building has been redone. So if you look at this, imagine how much work that would have been to repoint the entire building. So the care that has been taken and the excellence shown to restoring and preserving is really noteworthy and something to applaud.
Among the many reasons the Tower Life building still has life almost 100 years later were the occupants. Because you can't spell the Tower Life building without life.
There were some very famous people who had offices here, some very famous people that walked through the doors. One of the favorite stories from Sears actually takes place at this jewelry counter. On November 17th, 1934, a man rushes through the doors. His name is Dan Quill. He runs up to the jewelry counter and Dan says, "I need a wedding ring." And the ring wasn't for himself. Dan had a good friend who had fallen in love with a woman. The friend had proposed to the woman several times. She turned him down, and finally on the third try she accepts his proposal, says, "Yes, I'll marry you." The friend says, "Then we're getting married tomorrow morning before you change your mind." And they set the wedding for November 17, 1934. And leading up to that wedding, they realized, my gosh, we don't have wedding rings. And so the groom sends his best man, Dan, running down St. Mary Street. He runs through the doors. "I need a wedding ring," he says. And the clerk says, "What size?" And Dan is like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know." He winds up buying 12 different sizes of wedding rings, puts them in his pocket, runs up the street. The bride holds out her hand, and the ring that fits is $2.98. And it's the lifelong wedding ring of Lady Bird Johnson, future First Lady of the United States, purchased right here at Sears at Tower Life Building. So here on the 7th floor, there were several notable individuals that made this space their office. And from 1940 to 1942, the U.S. Army's 3rd Army was headquartered here in Tower Life Building. And here on the 7th floor was where some of the finest office space in the building could be found. And it's where the Chief of Staff had his office, and his name was Dwight D. Eisenhower. And before he becomes someone that is a rising star in the military, he was someone that was making sure the operations of the 3rd Army Army were going smoothly as they're in this space.
So many presidential connections.
Yeah.
Many people probably don't know.
So that is an amazing thing to just spend time and look over the records. Someone that also had an office here on the 7th floor more recently, I think in the 90s, was a man named Louis Stumberg. He was CEO of Patio Foods. They introduced the Tex-Mex TV dinner to the US market, and this was the place of his office. And so I think that's amazing, right? Totally different areas of history, but all the same, some movers and shakers on floor 7. But then there were just ordinary people as well whose names we still know, like F.W. Dean and Axel Olesen, who were construction workers here on the building and whose history is recorded. They're just regular San Antonians, but this is just as much their history as it is anyone famous that officed here.
For every truth of history, there's a tall tale that keeps growing taller, much like the building itself.
So of all things, the building is such an icon for our city that it almost becomes a character in the press. And the journalists decided to have some fun through the years, and so they would start photoshopping images of this building. In the early days, the 1930s, on April Fool's Day, there was a headline that the building had been hit by a meteor. So they literally white-outed part of the building as though a meteor had taken it out, and they show this meteor on the street. But one of the true stories about something amazing taking place here is there's a photo of a woman jump roping on a platform outside one of the balconies of the building. In fact, I think it may have been this balcony. The platform's about the size of a pizza box. Her name was Betty Fox, and she jump roped for 2 minutes to raise money for the San Antonio Charitable Hospital campaign. And she was 56 years old as she's up there jump roping, absolutely no safety restraints or anything. So what an amazing moment, and just another example of the incredible folks that have spent time here in the building and that have been part of its history. Even beyond that, there are so many stories of people that say, Tower Life building, I've always seen it. That's my favorite building. You know, my father used to work there. You know, I used to take the bus there when I was a child. And so it's amazing how this building and the fabric of San Antonio are just interwoven so beautifully. And it was significant because it was an icon of the city's belief in the future and how bright it was. So this is the tallest structure at the time that's being built, and it's really leveling San Antonio up with New York City and other places. People say, my gosh, I can't wait to see how the future unfolds before us.
Despite the storied history, this building has hit some tough times in recent years. After the 2020 pandemic and increase in remote workers, office occupancy dropped throughout downtown. In 2022, the occupancy of the Tower Life building was only 40%. But amid the hardship, this building has always been ahead of its time. And that point is reflected by what comes next, its bold new chapter. With a sale of the building in 2022 to an ownership group including some San Antonio developers and McCombs Enterprises, this building's stories will be filled with everyday people on all 31 floors. In fall of 2026, the building will be home to 242 residences, so normal San Antonians can take in this view on an everyday basis.
Essentially, all the floors are going to be residential. On the ground floor, of course, we'll have a main lobby, and we're going to have some retail space. Some restaurants, other shops, boutiques, both on the street level and on the Riverwalk level, right? Which currently does not have access, but we will create some new access. That's going to be wonderful. And then here, this is the 7th floor space. All right, this is actually over 5,000 square feet of outdoor space, which will be transformed into the residence gardens and terraces. Right, there's going to be cabanas, there'll be some water features, lounge seating. There's even going to be a dog run and a dog wash. So lots of different, wonderful little spots. And then the rest of the 7th floor, again, exclusively for residents and their guests, would be things like, a wonderful library, lounge space, co-working space. And so the rest of the building, these spaces here, up to the towers, will all be residential.
And how cool would it be to be all the way up there at the very top and seeing the entirety of pretty much San Antonio at one of the tallest buildings.
Well, what's fantastic about here, this walkway and outdoor terrace goes all the way around, as does this one, and as does this one on the 31st floor. So we actually have 3 penthouses that we're planning for the building. You know, the top penthouse is literally the top 2 floors entirely, right? One entire space.
Despite the major renovation, it's still important to Peter and McCombs Enterprises to keep the cherished history and nostalgia of the building alive.
When it comes to historic buildings, right in the center of, the heart of San Antonio, I mean, what better opportunity, was there than to preserve this gem of a building and help transform it. And not just the building itself, but really we're trying to transform and improve the neighborhood as well. We want this to be a vibrant neighborhood that all San Antonians can enjoy. One of our development partners is a company called J. Jeffers, and they are all about specializing in helping transform historical structures and buildings and giving them new life. So we are incredibly respectful of the fantastic architecture and all the design and the details. Basically, anything historic on this building, we're not touching. We're just going to polish it up like this, like this beautiful lobby.
The unique part of this episode is that the story isn't over. You have the opportunity to be a part of the pages of this history book, as it isn't close to being closed.
This will be for people that have the opportunity to live here. I mean, you're going to have the opportunity to not just live your best life here in the cultural heart of San Antonio, but really you're part of history. You're part of this heritage. You're part of this ongoing story. In fact, our tagline for the building, which we will rename Tower Life Residences, is "Bring your story to Tower Life."
And maybe your story will make this building's ever so expanding history book.
Amongst the great cities of Texas and the United States, San Antonio is distinguished by our historical preservation. We're a prime example of how this can be done well. And amongst all the projects that have been completed in San Antonio's history to preserve them and to make them accessible to future generations, I really believe Tower Life building is one of the largest scale examples of this that we've seen in our city's history. So what an exciting moment to say, here's history paired with modern relevance today, and you can have a part of that. You can be part of its future, right? And that's really, really exciting to see from someone who loves history and loves this city.
For nearly 100 years, it's been a Tower Life building, but really, it's a tower of lives, and the people who built it, worked in it, and soon will live inside it again. At the top of the Tower Life building, I'm Marcus Risen, Ken's 5+.